Sometimes you can get a good film despite missing a couple of beats. Even if the story is a bit half-assed or the world building is raggedy around the edges, a movie that's pretty okay can still be celebrated in the aftermath. But only if you don't royally f*** up more than one or two aspects. If a filmmaker makes the unfortunate misstep of bungling their project up any more than that, it is all but guaranteed that you've got yourself a big old turd, and nearly everything within it will be torn apart by critics and audiences alike. Even the saving graces will be lost to the annals of bad movie history, as it's true that great characters can find themselves trapped in the prison of a terrible movie. Unfortunately for them, they're usually destined to be forgotten. But hey, we're here to remember the people that made a rough experience that much more palatable, or single-handedly dragged a bad film to some sort of success. Whatever their rep, these diamonds in the rough deserved a whole lot better. I am the singularly fantastic Ash from What Culture, and these are 10 awful movies with just one great character. 10. Magneto, Dark Phoenix. Given how difficult the production process apparently was for Dark Phoenix, it might feel a little like kicking a film when it's down by criticizing the sequel too much. But then, it is an objectively disappointing experience whose heavy rewrites, lack of internal logic, and poor character decisions show very obviously. Its worst crime is arguably taking a group of great characters and either sucking all of the joy out of them, or leading them in new directions that either make no sense or are outright betrayals of the character, which is definitely the case with Professor Xavier. But the one thing you can't take away from the film is that it includes a great Magneto performance by Michael Fassbender, and a great spin on the character. Rather than the well-worn mutant supremacist track, we get a retired Eric living in peace in his mutant sanctuary, unwillingly drawn back into vengeance by the murder of his friend. In a nonsensical slog of a movie, his arc is the only interesting thing. 9. Captain Boomerang, Suicide Squad. Looking back at it now, Suicide Squad was an absolute travesty. Not only was it badly conceived in tone, story, and script, but it marked a dangerous precedent when the company responsible for cutting the excellent trailers were handed the keys to the editing suite whilst pushing David Ayer aside. It is no wonder it was a mess. Naturally, you're not really supposed to like any of the characters, because they're all bad guys. But it should have been possible to admire them in some way since we're supposed to be rooting for them. Barely any of the characters are written well enough to leave any sort of positives behind. And even Harley Quinn only went over that well because she looked so amazing. The substance behind her was no better than what was behind Deadshot. But then, there's Captain Boomerang. Because he barely wants to be involved in the task force, he is an agent of chaos, and seems to be the only person involved in the entire thing that sees the film's ridiculousness for what it is. 8. Roland Tembo, The Lost World. There may be some uproar about the idea that Jeff Goldblum's Dr. Ian Malcolm would be overlooked, since he is the star of the second Jurassic Park movie, but let's be quite frank here, Malcolm isn't great in this movie. He's very good, yes, but in the first, he's a sardonic, passive character who is almost killed the minute he tries anything more active than chaos theory. And this changes in The Lost World when he's basically Indiana Jones. Goldblum's charm aside, this is not the OG Dr. Ian Malcolm. And even though my love for Jeff Goldblum is undying, he's been pushed down just a little bit of a peg on this one. Almost everyone around him is not up to par either. The original heroes are replaced or relegated to pointless cameos, Vince Vaughn plays an eco-warrior, and even the Raptors end up being declawed. Only one man stands out as a truly great character. Big game hunter Roland Tembo. Pete Postlethwaite's eminently quotable Dino Hunter was caustic and hilarious, and you get the real sense that even the T-Rexes would have feared him. It's a travesty that we never got a spin-off. 7. Victor Creed, X-Men Origins Wolverine. Yes, Wolverine is a good character ordinarily, but the version we see in the justifiably hated X-Men Origins is not the one who stole pretty much every other movie he turned up in. The key to Logan, of course, is that he is haunted by his past, wounded by a trauma he cannot explain, and a bit of an unquantifiable maverick. In Origins, he's not yet the real blunted weapon, and left as a little bit of a mooner, to be quite honest. Most of his Black Ops squad is not that great either. Stryker lacks the necessary draw as the main villain, and the supporting characters are mostly just forgettable, which is a travesty when one of them is Gambit. But at least we can be thankful for Liev Schreiber. His Victor Creed is everything you'd want of him. More cerebral than the version from the first X-Men movie, darkly charismatic, and a genuine threat. He's the perfect antithesis to Wolverine, so it's a shame that we had to meet him in such a boring film. 6. Emil Blonsky, The Incredible Hulk. Perhaps it's because of the age-old too many cooks issue, but The Incredible Hulk was not a great experience, either for the fans watching it or for the people making it. Creative differences raged all over the place, and the end result is way more boring than it ever had any right to be. The rare shining lights of the potential in William Hurt's General Ross, but he wouldn't really blossom until he returned in Civil War, and Tim Roth's EMIL Blonsky, a special ops veteran with an inferiority complex who wants to be bigger, badder, and bolder than the Hulk. Roth chews the scenery to perfection, and he's just the right balance to Bruce Banner's stoic, more insular energy, illogically seeking to profit from the curse that has ruined Banner's life. It's a real shame he didn't get to come back for Age of Ultron like was once planned. 5. David, Alien Covenant. The Alien franchise deserves several shots in the arm now that Disney has acquired the rights, because it has been an arduous slog since Aliens with very few high points along the way. The strength of the brand has popped out 6 movies since the good old days, and they've done their best to betray or ignore what made the first 2 any good in the first place. Most recently, we've had to endure Ridley Scott's insistent belief that fans want to be bludgeoned over the head with heavy lore behind the creation of the Xenomorphs, whilst he also, for some reason, tries to convince everyone that the movies he said were Alien prequels aren't real Alien prequels. You know, despite what happens in them. The exposition is all bewildering, the characters are idiots, and even the aliens lack the usual punch. The only character even remotely watchable is, again, Michael Fassbender as David, a creepy android with a macabre fascination with playing God who is so unnerving you'd barely believe he wasn't human. It's a real testament to how well he's written that you want so much more for him than the DOS he is surrounded by. 4. Wonder Woman, Batman v Superman. Henry Cavill's Superman was good in Man of Steel, whether you care to admit he had no choice but to kill or not. Ben Affleck's Batman could even probably have been great in a different context, but combining them for Zack Snyder's wrong-headed event movie did neither of them any favours. Snyder never understood what most fans wanted from those characters, and the result was not pleasant to watch, as we all know. In a fight between 2 people, you have to have some investment in them as rounded figures to really care about the outcome. That's what this film fundamentally missed. But then along came Wonder Woman and gave us all hope for the future of the DCEU. She was a more pure take on the character, less affected by the insidious grit of Snyder's universe, and her appeal was enough that she stands out like a shining beacon against the sepia-toned mud of everything else. Thank God for our Amazon princess. 3. Darth Maul, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. There's probably a case for Obi-Wan Kenobi being the most well-rounded character in all of the Star Wars prequels, but he wasn't quite as interesting in Episode 1 as he would become later. He's a grower, not a shower. He's leagues above 99% of his fellow cast of characters though, which is pretty fatal for a movie that struggles mostly for a lack of small-scale substance to match its ideas of spectacle. But at least the film introduced us all to the coolest character in the Star Wars universe since Boba Fett. Darth Maul was instantly irresistible. He looks incredible, his combat skills are awe-inspiring, and he's made infinitely cooler by the fact that he is basically mute. It probably also helps his cause that he's killed off before he has a chance to overstay his welcome or his limited dimension show. But for that brief time, he stood out like a sore thumb for even the most cynical of old-school Star Wars fans. 2. Skeletor, Masters of the Universe. The story of the first attempt to bring He-Man to the big screen is legendary. Made by former adult movie makers, Canon Films, it was their great hope they pinned all their potential on. When it failed, they were forced to re-evaluate everything, scrapping the sequel partway through production and turning it into another film entirely, and giving up on their dream of making a Spider-Man movie too. Given the details that have emerged of that film, it is a mercy that they couldn't make it. And all of that was down to the fact that Masters of the Universe is terrible unless you stick your kitsch-tinted glasses on and head out for a good time. It's good campy fun, but that doesn't necessarily translate into brilliance. There is, however, one standout character, because somehow Canon got Frank Langella, a proper actor, to play Skeletor, and the result is one of the truly great villains trapped in a film you suspect he knows is awful. He's far from the screeching camp version of the cartoon, but he is menacing, has power and presence, and he actually doesn't look as bad as he could have. Skeletor is the icon we all deserve. 1. Eddie Brock / Venom. Venom. Okay, so you could claim that Tom Hardy played 2 characters in the oddly fascinating Venom movie. But really, it is a single, 2-pronged performance, and neither could exist as a single element without its other half. So I'm going to say that it counts. And so does the idea that the film is terrible because it really isn't good. If you take Hardy away, you start to notice everything about it that qualifies it as awful. The script is ludicrous, the story mediocre and weirdly dated, and the supporting characters ranging from nonsensical to utterly forgettable, the villain being both at once. But Hardy is incredible, and manages to elevate this turd in the wind to being a near billion-dollar concern that will now kick off at least one sequel and potentially a crossover with Spider-Man. His Brock is self-assured but vulnerable and hilariously shook by his infection, and the relationship with the symbiote is one of the most rewarding of the past few years. Venom might be bad, but it is lovably bad thanks to Hardy. And that's our list. What other films belong here that have just one interesting character? Share your thoughts in the comments section below. I've been Ash, and this has been What Culture. Make sure to subscribe to the What Culture YouTube channel for more lists like this, and don't forget to visit whatculture.com for daily news and articles. Thanks for watching.